Okay, so towards the end of last year, we normally get our news from Jump Festa. And Jump Festa is the hype beast where Oda typically drops some information and he talks about certain things where we're like, okay, what the hell is gonna happen? Like, we're really just shocked and we're hoping something hype comes from it. So late last year, December 2020, the information came out of Jump Festa, and this information was regards to Shanks. Well, people were trolling because people were saying, well, the red here doesn't have to be Shanks. And I'm thinking, well, it's not Kid, Algara. Who else would Oda be referencing with the red here? So with that information, a lot of us jumped to some conclusions. But this information was, okay. I guess before I talk about the information, since we're talking about red here, I guess we can make a correlation, the red button, subscribing. You guys see where I'm going, right? Subscribe to the channel and drop a like as well. Okay, let me talk about the red hair guy. Shanks, more than likely. So Oda said in 2021, the red-haired Shanks may make his move. So it's 2021. We're currently in July, more than halfway through the year. I think we've had more than half the chapters that we're going to get in 2021 so far from One Piece. And what is our conclusion? Well, I guess it's based on what we thought Shanks was going to do in the first place. This is somewhat inspired by my conversation with JD Legend, and we had to talk about Shanks, and his perception of it was that Shanks could possibly die before meeting up with Luffy, and I didn't agree with that. But so far, Shanks has been mentioned in the canon story, and there's been chapters where he hasn't necessarily been mentioned, but rather referenced, where we had a chapter with Kaido. We talked about Luffy and his potential, and Shanks was a part of that group. And then in the recent chapter, we find out about Shanks and taking the devil fruit from Who's Who. And now we're starting to question, okay, what is Oda setting up with Shanks? Because so far, twice in 2021, there's been reference or mention of Shanks. I believe that chapter is 2021, where Kaido talked about Luffy and, people, his potential, whatever. I think for me, the most important thing is Shanks' motive. Like, what is he trying to accomplish? Like, as the story goes on, it seems like he's trying to reel things in and hold things back for Luffy, but then that goes back to Luffy's destiny and prophecy. Where does Shanks know about this prophecy? Something that we've questioned, right? Again, Shanks' motives, but as we go through the story, what was the reasoning behind what he did? So we know now he stole the Gomu Gomu no Mi from the world government. This was being transported by CP9. That's confirmed. Now, while having the Gomu Gomu no Mi, Luffy ate it. And then after Luffy ate this fruit, Shanks then bet his arm on the new era and gave Luffy his straw hat. So now I'm asking the question, did Shanks really bet his arm on the new era because of Luffy and what he represents? The things he said that was just reminiscent to Roger? Or was it because of the straw hat? Now, people try to downplay the importance of the straw hat, but we know it's really important because we saw at the Reverie, Imu, they had the straw hat, or a much larger straw hat, in a chamber. So based off of that, one can assume Shanks knows about this information. I did put forth a theory about Who's Who and Shanks, saying Shanks could have possibly talked about Who's Who to the world government, but the premise behind that, because a lot of people are saying Who's Who is not that important. Well, he's important enough that CP0, they're in Wano to confirm his death. We're assuming, right? Because they could be lying. But so far, they're in Wano to confirm his death based on what he knows, even though they talk about the information being outdated. Now, for me, I don't know if that makes much sense because, okay, for the Gomu Gomu no Mi, he was guarding that, right? That's information that he knows for a fact, right? That can't be outdated because that happened. Shanks stole it. That's something that can't be outdated because it happened. I think outdated information, when I think about it, goes back to, oh, he knows the location of the ultimate devil fruit. Yeah, that was so many years ago. They could have moved it. That's outdated. But things that Who's Who is specifically mentioned, that's not outdated. When he talks about the sun god and Nika, this is from ancient times. Yes, maybe things aren't the same where people aren't worshiping Nika, or that has been shut off. It's kind of like Sora and the German 66, where the world government, they push forward an agenda. So those things over time, they dwindle, like Orochi and Wano, where they were instilling in these kids that Orochi did the great things that Odin did, right? Where over time, somewhat programming the people. Maybe that has happened. So Nika and the sun god are not as revered as they once was, like we saw back then with Mother Carmel and Skypiea, where for the most part, Elbaf and those things, they're somewhat ancient, right? They're ancient times, and how many people in that current world still live the same way? So that does lead me to the conclusion that maybe Who's Who has some more information that he will share, where it's more specific, and going forward, that could be dated. But so far, there's no dated information. So basically, that's my point for saying Who's Who is a very important character. And Shanks, the premise again, would be to go to the world government, reveal Who's Who's location, and by him doing that, he gets a favor. Now, what the hell could Shanks even want? But that's the difficult part, because we have no idea what Shanks would want. So far, Shanks has been traveling the world, and everything seems to be protecting what's currently in place. Not in the way of him being an admiral or a secret government operative, but in the way of him trying not to let the world go out of whack, stopping Kaido from going to Marineford, showing up and ending the war, trying to warn Whitebeard of Ace and Blackbeard. Now, a lot of people still believe in the theory that Shanks is going to the world government to warn them about Blackbeard. Personally, I mean, Oda could make it make sense, right? That's possible. But in my opinion, based on what we know so far, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, why would Shanks go to the world government to warn them about a Yonko? Like, it's a Yonko. They're like, duh, we know he's a threat. But again, it's not really a warning. He said he wants to talk about a certain pirate, meaning bringing some information. That's how I viewed it. But as far as a move so far in 2021, what can Shanks do that would not be far-fetched to the point that we're like, okay, that could definitely still happen in 2021, and not really, you know, destroy our expectations for the story and really have Shanks time travel again, because Shanks he moves really fast, right? From getting to Whitebeard and getting back to Marineford, getting to Kaido. Well, there's the theory that Shanks can teleport. I don't believe in it, right? Not really, but there's the theory of him being able to teleport. So that's something to keep in mind. What could Shanks do? Well, the verses for Yonko Saga, I don't think that can end without Shanks and Blackbeard, or focus on Shanks and Blackbeard. So for Shanks making a move, Oda could simply give us a couple panels of Shanks talking, because the last time we saw Shanks, he was looking at Luffy's bounty, right? And we saw him in a cover story where he was at a wedding of some sort. Blackbeard has made his move, where Blackbeard is going after something. Oda could drag this out where we have a Shanks and Blackbeard meeting before Wano ends, rather. Then we have a Shanks and Blackbeard meeting after Wano. And in the middle of that, we have Shanks and Luffy meeting. The issue here is, do you have Shanks and Blackbeard meet again in the New World? And for that not to have a conclusion, some blue balls, right? It's some blue balls. But One Piece, to be fair, it's a series that is consistently blue balling you. That happens time and time and time again. That's what Oda does. He likes kicking us in the nuts from time to time. And nuts is kind of figurative because it's men and women. Anyway, because Shanks meeting Blackbeard, I would love a conclusion, but I would hate it if it had a conclusion, because I need Shanks and Luffy to meet again. Like, that moment, Oda cannot take that moment from me, because I think that would be one of the greatest moments in One Piece, seeing him finally come face to face with Luffy consciously, because I'd said in my conversation with JD Legend, I'll link it below, that Shanks has not seen Luffy ever since that time where he gave him the Straw Hat. But someone said he saw him at Marineford. I'm like, okay, he saw him at Marineford, but he didn't see him, right? He saw Luffy passed out, and he's seen him in a newspaper, but he hasn't seen him, right? They haven't interacted as yet. And we need that interaction. We need the sky splitting. We need Shanks and Luffy clashing, the sky splitting, and Shanks finally acknowledging Luffy has become a great pirate. There's also the possibility of Oda lying, and Shanks does not do anything significant in 2021, where Shanks, we don't see him till 2022, and it's, you know, maybe the mention of Shanks with the Gomu Gomu no Mi, or, you know, Luffy's potential in comparison to Shanks, that's Shanks making a move. But I think it's real. I think it's real. Again, the Blackbeard thing, I don't know. That could be a bit far-fetched, because I'm scared of where that could go. But so far, the Yonko mirror each other. When one makes a move, another moves. Every single time, right? Blackbeard made a move, Shanks made a move. Whitebeard made a move, Shanks then made his move, right? With Whitebeard's move, also Kaido made a move, right? Big Mom doesn't really make a move unless something is of personal interest to her. So her move wasn't necessarily predicated on Kaido's move, but those things kind of match up because they're somewhat in tandem. So while that action didn't specifically cause that reaction, Luffy being the center of that was the motivation. Ultimately, what does Shanks do? If Blackbeard is going to Alabasta for an ancient weapon, I could see a situation, right, where Shanks goes to Alabasta, acquires this ancient weapon before Blackbeard does, and then Shanks goes from pursuing Blackbeard to being pursued by Blackbeard. Maybe knowingly, unknowingly, but that goes back to a theory of Blackbeard going after ancient weapons in Alabasta with his whole dialogue or speech about, if they're not going to use it, I'm going to do something with it. It goes back to that. For Shanks, if Shanks does that, it could lead to some interesting stuff. But again, we have to keep in mind, Oda could be trolling. So, I mean, so far in 2021, Shanks hasn't done anything. We're just checking in and just seeing, could things possibly happen? Yeah, we still have, you know, a lot of chapters left. Oda could just throw something in there. But so far, no dice. But I do think Shanks does something. I need him to, right? Obviously, one of my favorite characters. I think the Shanks hype, I mean, it's exorbitant, right? Some people do overrate him. You know, the Shanks and Mihawk conversation, that doesn't go away. But something also that I thought about with Shanks is that I want to see like his level of Conqueror's Haki, right? What I mean is his level of coding. Like, how does this stack up to the others. With the Conqueror's Haki coding and finding out how important Conqueror's Haki is, and we presume Shanks to have the strongest Conqueror's Haki in One Piece. Maybe not ever, but right now at least. What does that mean for Mihawk and Shanks, right? Does that change the conversation? Because, I mean, personally, I don't think Mihawk has Conqueror's Haki. Is that the great amplifier where Mihawk is the better swordsman, but Shanks is the better Conqueror's Haki user, so he can somewhat combat Mihawk and, you know, with his sword skills, with overwhelming strength amplified by the Conqueror's Haki coding? Now, if Mihawk has Conqueror's Haki, then, I mean, I think all bets are off, right? Because I don't know how Shanks would be stronger at that point. Because for Haki in general, I would assume Mihawk has, you know, equal, I wouldn't say superior, but I mean, arm and Haki. For him and the Nyx on the Black Blade, it's really hard to view him as inferior. And then going back to Mihawk Hawkeyes and Observation Haki, you could make the case that he is superior to Shanks in that film, in that realm. And then Shanks lost his arm to a Sea King. I mean, so how good is his observation Haki? Yes, you don't gotta get into think pieces of Shanks did it for a reason. I get it, it's a joke. I could legitimately talk about Shanks all day, even though he's only been in like 13 pages in the story. He's been in more than 13 pages, right? He has, because we've had, if you exclude chapter 1, has Shanks been in more than 13 pages of the One Piece manga? Because we had the conversation with him in Whitebeard, and we had the Gorosei stuff, and then we had the Marineford stuff. So yeah, he's been in probably like 20, 30 pages or so of a 1018 chapter story. And we love him so much. Every chapter with Shanks for me personally is a 10 out of 10. I love the character. I love what he represents, his connection to Luffy, what he's gonna, I think, his impact on the world overall, and just, you know, the mystery around it. But Oda's really great at that, man. He's really good at it. Oda, please make Shanks do something in 2021. We need it. Like, I think it's time. But guys, give me your thoughts. How do you feel about Shanks? Do you think Shanks makes a move in 2021? We had the information last year in Jump Festa. There was something back then in Jump Festa where Oda talked about Vivi, Boa Hancock, or Sabo. It was like, Sabo will, Vivi will, Hancock will, things like that, I believe, right? Nothing really came from that. Not really. But yeah, guys, give me your thoughts. Make sure to like the video if you did. Subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Follow me on Twitter at BragoDAce. Follow me on Instagram at BragoD.ace. Thank you to my patrons. I appreciate you guys so much. Guys, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
I start doubting me, I felt lost. I rewrite it.